18 days to the governorship polls talking about the off-season election that will be taking place in Imo, Bayelsa and Kogi State. And it seems materials are not yet ready. INEC is blaming litigation as part of the reasons why they are unable to send materials to these various states. So you do well to stay tight as we go through the papers to see other stories also that are trending on our papers. I am Sada Elisha Dashim and I'll be doing the program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Morning, Sally.
And to our viewers, please do remember we are live on Facebook and in YouTube, so you can do well to join us live there and also drop your comment and your views on stories that are of interest to you. And we'll go quick into the paper, starting with the leadership newspaper. NNPP tackles Ganduchi over Kanu foreign scholarship. You can find more detail of that story on page 14 of the leadership newspaper. And on tax evasion, appeal tribunal orders MTN to pay the FRS $72.5 million. And what's trending on the paper, how federal government receives 108 Nigerian migrants from the jail. FEC approves $3.45 billion loan for projects. You can find detail of that inside the paper. And again, Naira depreciates further to 1,235 Naira to a dollar in the parallel market. We saw that yesterday it was 1,200, 1,210, and it has actually widened again with about 25 Naira. So this is really something we need to look close into. So you can do well to read more of that story on the front page and on page 7. Senate defend purchase of the SUV says is for durability. You can find more of that on page 4. The big story for the leadership. 18 days to governorship polls, Bayelsa Kogi Imo election. Materials not ready. INEC blame litigation intra-party crisis. Restore public trust in electoral system. This is coming from the IPAC. And then ADS wants stakeholders against violence. You can find more detail of that on page 4. And other stories on the leadership, we have First Bank launches Digital Experience Center in Abuja. And on the ground rent debt, Wike vows to step on toes again. You can find more of that story on page 6. Yesterday we saw where he said everybody should bring that certificate of the tax they have paid, or else they will risk losing their business. So you can find more of this story on page 6. And on the international scene, we have Israel-Hamas war. UN expresses concern as death toll hits 7,200. UN expresses concern as death toll hits 7,200. And then the last story here, we have flight resumes at Kaduna Airport. More detail of that story can be found inside the paper. And Rachel, before we move to the next paper, I'm also concerned about a big story where we're seeing INEC is blaming. I mean, we remember they said the issue of suing and some of the crises we've been having in and out of court. And then here we're seeing they say, in fact, if we have intra-party crisis, and this is the reason why they're unable to send the material. We will recall that in Imo State, for example, we've had a number of bomb blasts in various INEC offices, and just so that it can, hinder or actually tamper with some of those things. And we remember when INEC said the more they burn, they will print it out, but then that means extra forms to be, used to actually make sure that all of these things are being provided. But here we're saying that it's 18, and then all the states are yet to get the materials. And I really feel that it's really not right at this point in time. The reason why we're seeing Nigerians are expecting INEC to gain their trust back, because a lot of people have lost their trust in INEC. The fact that a number of things we mentioned, the fact that some of the INEC staff were not present on ground as of the time of election, some of them did not even know how to use the beavers, and then quite a number of things happened during the other 28 states that had their governorship election. And here we're saying that 18 days. Do you think that INEC right now will have ample time to be able to send? Because believe you me, there's some of these communities that maybe they will have to use maybe through the water and not even through land to be able to send all of these materials, and then everything will be on ground for the election with all of this concern that INEC is already expressing on the paper.
I mean, Salah, to be very honest, INEC can be very flimsy a lot of times. This might sound like a concrete reason, but it's not at all for you to be 18 days to election and then you are yet to send materials to the state, because inter-party crisis has nothing to do with INEC materials, because these materials, first of all, are not kept in party secretariats, are kept in INEC offices in these states,
Yeah.
yes, in the Central
CBA
Bank
Bank.
of Nigeria, in those states,
Mm.
and in any other safe place. INEC's job is to make sure that the election goes smoothly. Therefore, it is in their own power to put everything that is their own jurisdiction in place. Like, what is their responsibility is for you to put it in place. It's a different thing if you wake up when it's the election day and then crisis and they come to you, INEC, and say, we no longer want this candidate, we are changing this word, then it is at that point in time, I believe, that INEC can say inter-party crises have been able to have merged the election because they were upset, they have planned, and this is what these parties did and caused and what made the election not to take place in this state. But aside from that, materials should have already been in this state. INEC should just keep playing their roles and just do the needful rather than just keep pointing fingers at the directions that you shouldn't even point. If INEC should come out and say they were expecting certain money from the federal government for this election and the funds haven't arrived, it is a good enough reason to say what is happening. INEC are not having enough fund to send these materials, but not what is happening in parties, because that is politics. While you are an electoral commission, you have your responsibility clean cut out there for you to do. So just play your role and then let's see how things turn out at the days ahead.
Of course, I will understand the fears INEC is expressing because they are afraid of bringing materials and then they lose the materials again, maybe to some people hijacking it left, right, and center, and all of that. But just like we said, sometimes there are certain reasons when Nigerians hear, they begin to wonder if INEC or the body inside is serious about what they are doing. Just like we said, there are safer places. I mean, we have not heard that the CVM Bank have been buckled by anybody to go get the materials whatsoever. So we hope that all the logistics will actually take place. Whatever they need for logistics should be given to them so they'll be able to send those materials. And then we're also seeing concern that stakeholders should avoid violence, because we've seen state, and then I remember Monday when we saw Kogi State saying that maybe he was supposed to be assassinated, and then he came out and said no, it was just a false alarm. It was just between the security agency and his convoy and all of that. So we hope that everybody know the right thing to do. These parties should put their followers in check. Stakeholders should not say anything that will ignite violence whatsoever, so that we'll see that these three states will be able to have their election without anybody hindering them from doing that. So we can find more details about the stories inside the Leadership newspaper.
On paper, Senate justifies 6 billion naira 2023 model Toyota Land Cruiser for 107 senators. FCT doctors lament proliferation of organ transplant centers. You can find more details on page 18. Medical doctors bags life imprisonment for defiling wife's knees. This took place in Lagos. You can find details on page 18. And on refineries, Senate probe 11.35 trillion naira TAM expenditure, Simmons NNPCL GMD. You can find details on page 5. The big story on the paper: troops hit terrorist Mina residents, recover 150 rifles, 20 rocket propellers, others 2. Suspect escaped into forest, 7 family members arrested. Operation lasted for hours. We couldn't sleep. This is a statement coming from the residents. Terrorists invade mosque, kill imam, 1 other in Benin. You can find details of the big story on page 6. And on Bayelsa Imo Kogi election, INEC threats over judgment, court orders, charges political parties on peace, assures on agents ID card. We are monitoring polls processes, says UK government. You can find details on page 6. Federal government, state, local government share 903 6.480 billion naira in September allocation. We're seeing that it has dropped a little bit. This is a report coming from the FAAC. Tinubu receives quick win report on fiscal policy and tax reforms. UBA Awareness Week stakeholders canvass interagency collaborations. You can find more details on page 22. We have a picture story where we can see the INEC chairman and the APC chairman exchanging handshakes, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
And on Dailies Sun newspaper, Peter Obi tagged judiciary on election petition with the rider says democracy based on faulty justice opens society to dangers. More detail can be found on page 6. The big story says Atiku bid to expose FBI CIA's record on Tinubu fails. US court reject request to propel the security agency to release document on Nigerian's president. NADECO asks the FBI to investigate Chicago Varsity over the certificate. More detail of the big story can be found on page 6. Inflation rate to hit 30% by December, Rachel, and then I'll say, did we not say so?
Yeah.
Quite sad one where we're seeing the writer here saying Rep summoned the CBN boss over reversal of ban on rice importation and others. And I'm wondering why the reps actually have actually summoned him now. Why did we have that before the borders were being opened for those 43 items to come into the country? Why did we allow them to start coming in before actually? So are we now asking the CBN governor how he intends to control that? Because I remember you and I expressed some fear, the fact that Nigeria might now become a dumping ground for some of these foreign things. Yesterday we saw the fact that there are certain products, chemical products that have been banned, but right now these companies have now resolved to using going online to actually sell their products.
Yes.
Now, do we have a body that is going to check all of those products online? Do we have a body that will make sure that those that are coming in will make sure that whatever food stuff, especially that of the rice and whatever we will be having, do we have the fact that apart from NAFTA, who else is going to be making sure that everything comes in when it should be? So that if it is something that we will consume, whether we're talking about the cement and other products that will come into the country, is very safe for us. And then how are we now looking at the fact that we're looking at our inflation going to 30%? Presently it's about 26 points. And then by December, we're saying it's going to be 30%. And then our Naira keep depreciating. Yesterday it was 1,210 naira. Today is 1,235 naira. By the time you wake up tomorrow, Rachel, it will be 1,003. And I'm afraid that before December, we're having the dollar to the naira to be 2,000 naira. So what other policies are we putting in place to control the fact that we have open, so more of an importing country than an exporting country, and whether we like it or not, that alone can actually, be a factor to make sure that our inflation keeps going high, because we are not producing anything, we are not selling anything. What are we selling apart from the fact that we're selling our crude oil and they're still buying it back in dollars? So what else are we selling in the country? We prefer to consume things, and then in fact it even goes down to the common man, Rachel. When you go to the market, you turn to a shoe. Once you see it's made in so country, you want to patronize it. But once you see it's made here in Nigeria, we don't even want to patronize it. So it even starts from we not even going to even the politicians and our leaders and all of that. So really, I don't know what will come out of this summon that the reps actually summoning the CBN governor, but we'll keep our fingers crossed to see how this whole thing will turn out to be.
I mean, so we just have to keep waiting and seeing and putting our faith on the government of Nigeria, despite the fact that a lot of decisions and policies that have been implemented feels like it's not going to drive us anywhere. But then, of course, we have to give it time to wait and watch how it's going to play out. If you are putting somebody in a position as the Central Bank of Nigeria governor, it's expected that you know that this person is capable of taking both monetary and fiscal responsibility. So if he sat down and saw the need for the ban to be uplifted, there is a reason behind it, because whether we like it or not, in this period of years that there was the ban on the rice, the federal government failed in making sure that we produce rice enough for our consumption in this country, talk more of exporting. And then we are looking at an economy that there's so much hardship, and it's only wise that somebody will sit down and say, what can we do for this period of time? And while we are doing this, I hope there are also plans to keep boosting the economy regarding production of rice, because the way it's supposed to function is a gradual exit. And I believe that that's what the government have failed to execute in the past. While we were importing rice in the past before this ban, we were supposed to keep pumping money into the production, that gradually we start reducing how much export of rice we bring into the country, because we are beginning to make enough production for our own consumption. So we go from 50-50, then our production grows to 60 and we only need 40. Our production grows to 70 and we only need 30. Our production grows to 80 and we only need 20. Our production grows to 90 and then we only need 10%. That is how sustainable growth is supposed to happen when it comes to import and export, because trust me, there are countries, despite their strong economy, don't have enough certain product and they still import. But it's all about the how many percentage of import are you depending on as a country. So we will wait and see how things plan. That important days don't mean doom for Nigeria. What is doom for Nigeria if the government sits down and does nothing concerning boosting the production of this product that we are depending on?
Rachel, I just couldn't help but wonder what happened to our rice pyramid when we had Buhari administration. He actually launched it.
Yes.
And then we saw the pyramid, and then a lot of farmers were happy that they are contributing.
Yes.
So what happened to that pyramid is a question we need to ask, and maybe we need to go back to, just like you said, to boost our production in the country. Other stories still on Daily Sun. We have medical director bags double life imprisonment for child defilement. You can find that story on page 5. Nigerian company launches on ban IRA vehicles Troy's production. You can find more of that story on page 29. Kogi Imo Bayelsa. INEC frowns at political parties' non-nomination of agents. You can find more of that on page 18. And I hope INEC will be very strict about the fact that all the agents have to be named and then have their ID card, so we avoid any malpractice whatsoever. And on impeachment, Ondo Deputy Governor asks the Chief Justice to ignore letter from the Assembly. Moribor Refineries NNPCL faces 11.35 trillion naira probe, with the rider, the GMD and others have been summoned. More detail can be found on page 28. Federal government and state, local government to share 903 billion naira in September. We hope that all the people that are supposed to get that allocation will get the right for it, especially to the local government areas. We also have another story here that says federal government obtains fresh $17 million loan from the World Bank. Facility meant to support adolescent education, which we saw yesterday. The president made that known during the summit. Downside of the paper, alleged P&ID scam, EFCC open case against fleeting Britain. You can find that on page 5. We have a picture story where we can see Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State during the completion ceremony of the first 200 cars assembled by the GAC Motors in Lagos yesterday. And that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, clerk to Tinubu amend NDDC Act to exclude Imo, Abia, Ondo as non-Niger Delta states. Court sentences Lagos Dr. Olaleye to life imprisonment for raping wife's niece. U.S. court denies urgent request for release of Tinubu's dossier. You can find more details on page 28. Oduwa's investment moves to revolutionize digital education in the Southwest, launches defined project. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 24. The big story on the paper, Senate justifies purchase of 160 million naira SUVs, says Nigerians should examine lifestyles of ministers. Probes 11.35 trillion naira spent on refineries maintenance since 2010. You can find details on page 5. Reps invite CBN governor over lifting of forex exchange ban on 43 items to probe Benue bank robbery. Nigeria to vaccinate 7.7 million girls against leading cause of cervical cancer. You can find more details on page 21. Southwest governors visit Akeredolu in Ibadan. Ondo deputy governor tackles assembly over letter to CJ, tells CJ to disregard letter to investigate him. Federal government unveils plans to reduce collectible taxes, says Nigerians burdened by over 200 taxes. You can find more details on page 21. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
All right, on this day newspaper, we have on term Senate Constitute panel to probe the NNPCL over the 11.35 trillion naira spent on moribund refineries in 13 years. Justify SUV purchase for senators silent on costs, says lawmakers went for Prado Jeep for durability. More detail can be found on page 10. U.S. rushes defense advisors to Middle East as Israel ground assault in Gaza looms. More detail on page 35. Nigeria on course of 1.5 million barrel per day combined crude oil refining capacity by 2025. And coming from the Labour Party presidential candidate Obi, rule of law threatened when citizens lose faith in judiciary. Says only judicial intervention can protect the public from tyranny of duplicacious character. You can find more of that on page 10. The big story on tax reform, federal government to streamline over 200 taxes levies to single-digit number. The right of Florida said Tinubu received tax committee quick win report, directs implementation of recommendation across the MDAs. Naira depreciate further into 1,310 naira to a dollar on the parallel market, 847.77 naira to a dollar on the official market as arbitrage gap widens to 462 naira per dollar. House summons CBN governor for lifting forex restriction on 43 items. We have a picture story here where we can see the president and also Bajabia Amira with other people talking about tax reform on their minds. Downside, we have another story that said the PNID judge refer UK lawyers to regulators in Nigeria, $11 billion arbitration win. More detail of that can be found on page 10, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, Senate probes 11 trillion naira refinery repairs and summons Kyari. You can find details on page 7. AFCC chair orders staff to declare assets. Reps fault CBN's forex ban lift and ECA kicks. You can find details on page 21. The big story on the paper, multiple taxation. Tinubu panel asks government to drop 190 taxes. OPS blames state. Panel OK's 10 levies, says 200 taxes burdensome. Lobbies National Assembly and state. President endorses tax reforms. Panel to address FEC FIRS pledges implementation. You can find more details on page 2. And at the downside of the paper, DSS naps suspected terrorist wife recovers 150 AK-47 rifles. Lagos cancer doctor Olaleye backs life jail for rape. And we have seen Nigerian student Philippine police file murder cases against suspects. You can find more details on page 4 and 5, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
Another voice of liberty, despite public outrage, Senate insists on planned purchase of the luxury SUV. Terrorists break into Kaduna mosque and kill Imam. More detail inside the paper. CAC uncovers 189 fake companies used to secure land allocations in Abuja. Really happy that the minister and also the CAC are really working to find out who are the people behind these 189 fake companies used to secure some land allocations. You can look up that story more inside the paper. Nigerians to pay 1,500 naira per kg for cooking gas as depot price hit 16 million naira 20 MT coming from marketers. The National Association of Liquefied Petroleum Gas Marketers have urged Nigerians to brace themselves for the reality of filling 1 kilogram cylinder of liquefied petroleum gas at the rate between 1,002 to 1,005. I mean, Nigerians are bracing up for quite a number of things. You can do well to look up that story inside the paper. Produce all commercial locally ACOG direct advertisers. You can find more of that story inside the paper. US court refuses to order the FBI CIA to release files on Tinubu. And on the issue of the Niger Delta, Clark demands the removal of Abia, Imo and Ondo from the NDDC. Downside of the paper, we have tackled challenges head on. Soon we will begin to reap the rewards coming from the President Tinubu, in that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On New Telegraph, coming from Telecoms, misappropriated 15 billion naira for rural coverage stirs controversy. Federal government, state, local government share 903.480 billion naira revenue in September. You can find details on page 8. First Lady laments cervical cancer prevalence. You can find details on page 5 and 28. And then it's very important for women within the childbearing age to go and get this vaccination. Southwest governors visit recuperating Akeredolu in Ibadan. And in Kaduna, bandits attack mosques, kill imam worshippers and kidnap others. 10,000 police recruitment, 288,266 applications received in 1 week, says the PSC. You can find details on page 3. The big story on the paper, Clark seeks exclusion of Abia, Imo, Ondo states from NDDC. Wants only original 6 Niger Delta coastal states retain other oil producing states to establish relationship with oil firms and federal government. You can find details on page 3. Tinubu receives fiscal tax reforms report. Alleged PNID scare, EFCC. Alleged PNID scam, EFCC resumes trial of runaway Britain James. You can find details on page 2. Rep summons CBN boss for lifting FX ban on 43 items. More details can be found on page 5. INEC deletes Silva deputy from Bayelsa Guba poll. You can find more details of the story on page 4 and 5. Senate probes 11.35 trillion naira refineries rehabilitation contract. Says choice of 360 SUVs based on durability keeps mom on cost. National Assembly asks police orders to probe or to pull bank robbery. You can find more details on page 2 and 7. And under the downside of the paper, we have living alone could raise cancer risks. You can find more details of this study on page 28. And then we have a picture story where we can see the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, at the launching of over 2,000 GAC motors that were assembled in Nigeria, in Lagos State. And that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
All right, before we continue further with other paper analysis, we would love to take a break at this moment, so we can open the phone lines. Quite a number of stories for you to actually drop your views on. So we look forward to your views on our Facebook, and also when we open the phone lines after the break. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television. We've been looking at a number of stories on the paper, from the reasons why INEC are unable to send material to the 3 states that will be having their governorship election by the 11th of November. They said based on some uncertainty and also some of the internal crisis in the parties, and also because of the litigation, talking about one filing of case after another. And then we have other stories on the paper where we are having reps have summoned the CBN governor in regards to lifting of the ban of the 43 items that were lifted. We would love to hear what your own view is concerning any of the story that is of interest to you. Please do remember, turn down the volume of the TV set when you call us, and also try to summarize your point in a minute so other callers can get the room to also air their views. I'm Sada Elisha Basham, and I have with me Rachel Tansy. Thank you, Rachel, for
You're
joining us
welcome,
with me.
sir.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Independent newspaper. Senate probes 11.35 trillion spent on refineries in 13 years to question Petroleum Resource Ministry, NUPRC, NNPCL, and the BBE. You can find more of that story inside the paper. Why I want Tinubu to remove Abia, Imo, Ondo from the NDDC by Clark. Urges him to publish forensic audit report on the agency. You can start reading on the front page and continue in the paper. Imo, Kogi, Bayelsa, Guba polls. Court orders delay printing of sensitive materials coming from INEC. Says violence threatening conduct of elections in 3 states. Parties urge INEC to use the poll to deal with confidence deficit. You can find more of the story inside the paper. Reps summon CBN governor over lifting forex ban on toothpicks and others. More detail can be found in the paper. Sanwo-Olu inaugurates automobile assembly plant in Lagos. CAC uncovers 189 fake companies defaulting Nigerians. Tinubu's tax administrators more single-digit collection tragedy. And we have alleged PNID scam. EFCC opens case against fleeing Britain James Nolan. And we have Senate justify purchase of the SUV for lawmakers. Urges Nigerians to focus on ministers. You can find more of that story inside the paper. And I believe that Nigerians are not just focused on the ministers, we are focused on our House of Rep. In fact, we are focused from everybody. Because on a time when we keep saying, let us cut the cost of governance, let us cut the cost of governance, and then we are seeing that apart from the fact that they are trying to justify that it's because of durability, they need a car to work, and they are saying that rather than focusing on their car, Nigerians should focus on the ministers. So what difference does it make whether Nigerians focus on the ministers or we focus on the senators? Because all Nigerians want you to do is that to work and make sure Nigeria is moving, not to keep purchasing cars. Of course, we can't stop you. You've already gotten the cars as far as Nigerians are concerned. But then what Nigerian want is, right now you'll be buying gas, 1 kg at 1,005. So imagine if you have 12 kg, how much do you need to fill up that cylinder? And then begin to see stories like that. Sometimes Nigerians will be tempted that maybe the leaders do not care about them, and that's why they go about certain things like this. But our fingers are crossed, and we hope that we begin to see better things, better decisions coming from our lawmakers. And we have fake shares 903.480 billion naira for federal government, states, and local government for the September. More detail of that can be found on page 6. We have a picture story where we can see Governor Akiro Dodo of Ondo State, and also Governor of Oyo State, Makinde, where they're actually sitting down and discussing yesterday. You can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any story that is of interest.
$11 trillion. This is coming from Wale Edun, the finance minister. Ganduje wants constitutional rules for deputy governors. Provost debunks school fees increment. You can find details on page 21. Court refuses order of dossier on Tinubu. The big story on the paper: federal government to clear FX backlog, attract more investors. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 2. Plateau State government forges partnership with Houston, Texas. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 2. Naira to stabilize if announced $10 billion flows into economy. You can find details on page 3, and that's all the news on the Nigeria Standard.
On Nigerian news, the Rare Cargo Airport, Ogun, to commence commercial flight, sign concession agreement in 45 days. blame LPG operators for increase in price of cooking gas, coming from the NALPGAM. The big story on the Chicago State University certificate technicality store admission of Atiku's evidence in Supreme Court, with the rider INEC APC Tinubu plead with court to classify Atiku's evidence as inadmissible statutory. And then Supreme Court reserved judgment in Obi and Atiku's appeal. And also we have APM withdrawals case, and I think these are stories that are coming up from yesterday. And that's all on Nigerian News Direct.
On Nature News newspaper, Governor Abiodun declares state of emergency at Oyan Dam. You can find more details on page 5. 2023 Climate Story Lab in Lagos sparks collaboration for impactful climate storytelling. The big story on the paper, Carbon Accounting. UBA PLC emerges first West African bank to join global PCAF core team. You can find details on page 3. LAWMA shuts Alaba International Trade Fair Market for environmental offenses. Federal government plans affordable homes for low-income earners. And there is a column you can find on page 15 for nature care, nutrient-dense superfood for kids' high development. NDDC reiterates commitment to youth empowerment, sustainable development. Benue State to benefit from $700 million World Bank project for climate resilience. Federal government approves $3.45 billion World Bank loan for electricity. You can find details on page 6. Sterling Bank Jinko Solar to revolutionize solar energy in Nigeria. And at the downside of the paper, NPFL finds Kano Pillars, warns Heartland supporters. You can find details on page 21. And that's all the news on Nature News newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the world of business on Business Day newspaper. P&ID ruling leaves room for appeal as Nigerians demand proof. The big story say inside 14 billion naira fraud crippling Nigerians' payment ecosystem. Calls growth for private sector investment to drive the SDGs. And we have GTCO boost profit with 334 billion naira from the forex gain. And we have other smaller stories and picture stories on the front page of the paper. You can do well to grab Business Day and read detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On the Nation newspaper, U.S. court rejects request for FBI's report on Tinubu. Land racketeering rocks FCTA. You can find details inside the paper. EFCC chair orders staff members to declare asset. Senate defend 160 million naira SUVs for National Assembly members. Federal government unfolds forex tax jobs investment policies. 260 taxes to be slashed to single digit. Merging of Beruti change forex apps dealers into official foreign exchange market. And we have 288,266 apply for police job in 1 week. FAAC saves 299 billion naira from September revenue. You can find details on page 7. Oil thief deploys CCTV mortar launches along pipeline route. NNPCL security, we won't relent in battle against criminals. Akeredolu receives Sanwo-Olu, Makinde, Abiodun and Oyebanji. Aiyedatiwa writes Chief Judge. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 5. Clark 6 exclusion of Abia, Imo, Ondo from NDDC. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at what the Guardian newspaper have for us. Insecurity defers 261 National Assembly motions, 20 legislations, 12 trillion naira in 16 years. Insecurity defers 261 National Assembly motions, 20 legislations, 12 trillion naira in 16 years, where we are having about 71,449 lives claimed nationwide in 16 years. And then we are having 63,111 killed in Buhari's era, 7,582 under Tinubu. And also from the National Assembly, we are having they have passed 261 resolutions, 20 legislative bills, appropriate over 12 trillion naira to tackle insurgents and insecurity. And the question will be, with all of this money that have been spent, how comes we're yet to record success to fight insurgents and to fight insecurity in the country? Looking at the figures, I mean, the president presently is not even up to 5 million seat. I mean, if you start counting it, when he came into May, we have in June, July, August, September, October, so 5 months. It's not even up to half a year, and then we're already having other people who have been killed under his watch are over 7,000. Then that means we need to sit back and see, with all of the money that is being, sent into that state, because this is, I mean, this is one of the places that the government spends so much. The security agency will have all that they need, but yet we're yet to record success. So the question right now will be, what really is the problem? Are we trying to say that our security agents are not as brilliant or as intelligent as we think they are? Are we trying to say the right things are not being done? Are we saying this is doing with the or we're saying that maybe Boko Haram kidnappers have overpowered the government?
Hello?
What really is the problem that we're yet to record success when it comes to tackling that? We've seen an imam was killed in Kaduna State. We're seeing pockets of killing in Benue and northern Katsina State. Today, we're yet to hear the remaining girls that were being kidnapped in San Francisco. Schools have been brought back and other workers alongside. So quite a number of things are happening, and the question will be, what really is the problem? What is the problem that we're yet to record success as we should have for this past over 16 years or so that we've been having the issue of Boko Haram, herdsmen, unknown men, and the likes of it, even though I believe they are one and the same, just changing their name. But my question and concern is, what really is the problem? What are we not doing? How can we get it right? I think that is the question for me. How can we get it right? Looking at the fact that we have done all we have, but then it seems we're not recording success as we should.
Stella, we're doing a lot, at the same time we're not doing much, because I believe when it comes to countering terrorism, there are just so many ways to go about it. Apart from the physical war, where we have our troops out there at the field in wherever these terrorists are, we also have to cut the source of terrorism, because whether we like it or not, this is a crime that is being sponsored. Whatever form of terrorism you see is being sponsored. And I believe that the government of Nigeria, with intelligence and resources, can be able to cut the source of terrorism in Nigeria, as long as they are willing to. So for sure, we don't know exactly what the military, the army, the navy, the air force are doing. We've seen a lot of airstrike here, destroying terrorist dens and all of that. But then what about going to the roots? What about the source? I believe that is one place also that there is supposed to be more force to it, not just only the one at the field, but also the background work. And I believe that we're just here, Sarah, to keep rendering our voices and just adding and keep talking and saying, you know what, you are doing okay, but we need you to do more for Nigerians. We have a caller.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, Shaman calling from Kaduna. We are having a network problem this morning.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Shaman. Sorry about that.
Shaman calling from Kaduna. Yes, Sele and Rachel. Honestly speaking, what the Senate are saying, that they are justifying the buying of the SUV vehicles at the cost of 160 million per a vehicle. At this stage of living, that people are not finding life easy, that Nigeria is crumbling, that Nigerians are struggling, that youth are looking for jobs, graduates are working on streets, graduates have turned to be Okada riders, graduates are wandering on the streets, and our elected officials will use this sponsor of money to buy vehicles for themselves. Then what I was saying, do they really have us attacked? They don't have the subject attacked. If this is how we continue in this country, then we will continue to be in a developing country. We will never develop. That's my own opinion. But if we want to develop, we should get things done right. Why should money be spent on aspects like this while people are suffering? Nigeria, where do we get it wrong? Who do us in this country? Who do us in this country? Is it not better we go back to the area of military? The military was there and there was peace in this nation, that we have politicians on the ground, that they don't have us at heart. You go and elect people into power, and they become tyrants on you. I cannot see us growing if this is the way we continue in this country. After Tinubu will, for God's sake, see reasons to revise and cut governance. Because if they continue like this, I cannot see us growing in this country. Look at Ghana that came behind us when I was in secondary school. We are having a backward. Ghana must go. Ghanaians who are selling pop for us. They are teaching us in secondary school. Ghana today, my son's school in Ghana. Look at what this Ghana is all about today. And we are suffering here in Nigeria with all the resources we are having on ground, mismanagement by our leaders. It's not better we go back to the area of military so that we get it right in terms of security and the corruption will control. It's so bad the country is becoming. Honestly, we should be in prayers for this, our leaders. Tinubu should wake up. If you want his name to be written in gold in this country, because he came in, people thought he was going to rescue Nigeria. But I will continue to pray that let God use him if he's the one that will rescue Nigeria. We know the starting is rough, but I pray we're going to get it right in this country. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Shamal. Thank you very much. Of course, we wouldn't want to go back to the military regime because democracy on its own is designed to drive and create a government that is inclusive, a government that can review itself, reshape, reform, and that is what democracy is. Very, very, very flexible in its nature, and we're just struggling with leadership in Nigeria on so many levels. And until we get to that level where we will not have issues with the people we decide to put in power, that are selfless, that are willing to make sacrifices, to take decisions, and to implement them rightly, then we will keep struggling with certain things. But aside from that, I believe democracy is perfect for Nigeria. It's not flawless, but for to a right extent, it's good.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Shaman for Kaduna, 100%. But my advice to Shaman is let him pray that if things want to get right in the country, let there be revolution. And if there is a revolution, anyone who wants to die and go, and anyone who wants to survive, then let it survive, then the country will be well and okay, So please, I support you very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, even though I really didn't get the point.
Oh, he is supporting what Mr. Shamal said
about the military.
Yes, at the same time he's saying he should also add a revolution, because that the country needs a revolution, and let who will die and go, and for those who will survive live.
Rachel, if you ask for my opinion about this thing, are we trying to say during the military regime we didn't have some things that didn't go as we wanted them to?
A lot of things didn't go well.
A lot of things didn't go as well, and even while during the coup, it was one coup countering after another coup. So that is just tell you that there was no time that everything was just perfect.
Smooth. There wasn't.
So it's all about the people who are in leadership to make deliberate steps and say that we want Nigeria to work.
Yes.
And it's not all about our leaders, but you and I, what is our responsibility? What are we doing to also contribute to the fact that Nigeria is also working? Leadership makes sense at the end of the day, because it's that when was it you and I were going through the papers where we saw a number of pensioners collapsing? Why? Because a director somewhere did not do what he was supposed to do, provide shade for these old people, provide. It starts from there, Rachel. So it's not until you get up there before you get it right. I try to get it right from here, and when you get up there, it will not be difficult, because you will consider people. So in the terms of talking about insecurity, we just hope that eventually we'll be able to get it right. I think it's high time we try something different, because it's obvious what we have been trying is not working, Rachel. So we need to try something different.
Sure.
Still on the Guardian newspaper, off-season polls, court judgment in pending preparation. INEC laments. You can find detail on page 3. Senate reopens probe of 11.35 trillion naira term cost, 1.6 trillion naira loss on refineries. Detail found in the paper. Corporate Affairs Commission uncovers 189 fake companies. Detail of that on page 3. The electoral system and danger of over litigations. It's an editorial you can find on page 12. Despite 6.5 trillion naira spent on education in 7 years, federal government laments poor performance. So we need to go back to the drawing board. What really is responsible for that? You can find more on page 3. Also, we have troop neutralized 9 ISWAP terrorists arrest logistics supplier in Borno, and I'm happy we're beginning to make, arrests of suppliers, and I think we can go further by announcing and having the names of the people who are financing all of these things also be made public. Hello, good morning.
We are suffering in this country, and maybe because of these things, that is why the article and this big case will never go anywhere.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So that is why you can never go anywhere, because they bought all this stuff, this Hilux, and give all these people, and the Senate is supporting them simply because so that they can be able to see that Atiku and Obi case did not go anywhere. That is why they bought all this, and that is why the Senate is supporting them. And on the issue of resources, we have a lot of resources in this country whereby we're supposed to at least feed very well. Graduates will have jobs and so on and so forth. But everybody in this country is only on his own region, supporting his own his own region. That is all. That is what we are facing in this country. So at least we get Boko Haram here and there, Boko Haram here and there. Who is that Boko Haram? This is a means of using it to distract the government. So that some people, they will continue to reap where they did not sow. These are the things. That is the reason why all these things happening in this form. At least there are some resources in the northern area like this. Go to all those places. You see that the mineral resources is what is causing all this Boko Haram. Who are those who sponsoring them? There are so many NGOs in that place, that northern area. Why is it that they cannot go? Foreigners are there mining everything and so on, and we are suffering. If army will go there like this, some people will support them. Who gave all this Boko Haram, all the heroes, and the aircraft guns, tanks and everything? Who give it to them? It's people that are just making sure that the resources in that place, they continue repeating. Okay, you come to this south again like this, you go to Niger Delta. They have we don't know whether they have two countries. Some people have their own separate army, and they will be boasting with it. And government cannot do anything, because if you try like this, they begin to destroy our pipeline like this, so that people continue suffering. Okay, let's see things like this. You can see that they can't this in judgment they give concerning this is somebody a contract of gas, whereby somebody is claiming around 12 billion. And if there's not something like that, have you seen that case go against Nigeria? Those people will share it. You come to Nepal like this, Nepal cannot even buy this.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your contribution on that. Thank you. All right, I think that's all on Guardian. Rachel, let's take this last paper and we're done for the day.
On Vanguard newspaper, tax exemptions waivers to cost federal government 12.4 trillion naira in 4 years. Clark seeks expulsion of Abia, Imo, Ondo from NDDC. You can find details on page 12. Senate to probe federal government's 11.35 trillion naira TAM up refineries. Ground rent debts will step on toes, Wiki tells defaulters. And on presidential poll, INEC must probe why upload of results to IREF failed. This is coming from Jega. You can find details on page 4. Nigeria needs $10 billion annually to fund SDGs, coming from the federal government. Funding biggest challenges of SDGs. Private sector must supplement government. Federal government must expand tax net for more revenue. Government need to leverage on technology to improve services. Infrastructure has to be revamped. UN representative. Alleged anti-party activities, Deputy Speaker, Minister at war. And concerning the SUVs, we considered caused bad roads before approving Land Cruisers. This is a statement coming from Nigerian senators. You can find more details on page 4. Aftermath of Vanguard report, federal government extends stay of recalled envoys by 3 months. We've received AIE, but it's not cashed back, coming from the envoy. 3 months too short, agreement takes at least 6 months. This is coming from ex-ambassadors concerning payments that haven't been made to them and also appointment. You can find more details on page 5. We have a column that says The Finger of God, a book you can find on page 15, and a Babalola column on page 22, and a sports column on page 31, talking about Osimhen Boniface lead list of Nigeria's most valuable players. And that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for
You're
doing
welcome,
this with me.
Terry.
Thank you to all our callers who call on the program. We're truly grateful for your comments and also your views on the stories. Until we come here tomorrow, do have a blessed day ahead.